Rugby World Cup 2021 being played in 2022. First round result, folks. We had 6 games at the weekend, 3 at Eden Park, 3 up in Whangarei. We'll go through the games pretty quickly. How did the results go? Were they as expected? And yeah, you guys can let us know your thoughts on how you think things are shaping up in this Women's World Cup. So yeah, the first one, France and South Africa from Eden Park, Pool C. I think this kind of went as expected. I mean, South Africa realistically not much of a shot up against a fully professional French side. 40 points to 5. It took the French a wee while to get going, which is maybe fortunate for the French that they had South Africa in their first game rather than England, who they've got this week. So, yeah, it took them a while, but once France got going, they, sure enough, put South Africa away pretty comfortably. Sansui's got a couple. But I mean, South Africa played some pretty good running rugby, managed like 5 clean breaks in that game, which is perhaps more than was expected. They didn't go and get nilled, which is pretty pleasing. So, yeah, I think South Africa's still a very much a developing country in the women's game. And they've been beaten by 35 points, but genuinely against one of the proper title contenders of the World Cup. So I wouldn't say there's any shame in that. And for the French, I certainly think there's more to come from them. It's maybe a similar story with the second game as well. England 84, certainly the most points of any of the teams this week. 19 for Fiji. I mean, Fiji, the fact they scored 19 points against England is actually pretty bloody good, because England in their matches in the Six Nations this year, nobody scored 19 points against England. I think France scored the most with like 12. Yeah, not many teams got anywhere near 19 points, unless you consider 12 near, and that was the closest. So, yeah, man, Fiji, another one, kind of like South Africa, a developing team, really showed some good fight, especially with the backs, which is maybe the stereotype with Fiji and rugby. But, I mean, England, backs and forwards, just scored an absolute bundle. McDonald gets 4 tries. The maul just keeps tearing it up. The set piece from England is absolutely brutal. So they had like 900 and something run meters to the English, which is just like, in comparison, I think the All Blacks did something similar up against the States when they put 100 points on them. The All Blacks might have got 1,000. So 900 run meters is phenomenally high. Although Fiji had something like 500. So really, really fun game in that regard. Although, not the most tense one on the scoreboard. So those are your 4 teams from Pool C. It's England 1, France 2, South Africa 3, and Fiji 4. And then for Pool C, I think this coming week is going to be the biggest one of the Rugby World Cup for that pool, because you've got Fiji taking on South Africa, which is 2 teams in more of a similar place, and then France taking on England, which is, the 2 top dogs in that pool. So that's going to be really, really fascinating to see how that plays out. The third and final game from Eden Park. Some people commented about the empty seats, and I mentioned it at the match review. That, I mean, I didn't mention the fact that it's 3 games, so some people would have come and gone by the time that the Black Ferns and Wallaroos were playing. But also, a lot of the corporate seats were the ones that were empty, to be honest. But still a really good and very vocal crowd for that one. 41-17. 17 points from the Aussies, but then 41 unanswered points from the Black Ferns. So I really do think the fact that the Black Ferns have been fully pro for almost a year now is a potential difference maker, because the Wallaroos visibly seem to tire in that game. So, Woodman gets 3 tries. Tarita for the Wallaroos gets a couple. The top tackler of the game is a Wallaroo, and I think it's Lafayette had made 19 tackles, which is a huge shift. But their winless run against the Black Ferns continues. Away at Eden Park was always going to be pretty tough, but they certainly started the game about as good as they could. It's just not being able to keep up that pressure. And like as I said, you are going to see some of the differences between the fully professional teams and the ones who are either partially professional or amateur still. Over the course of 80 minutes. So, yeah, man, Black Ferns are top of Pool A. The Aussies are at the bottom. The other Pool A game was the last one, but we'll go on to the Whangarei games from Pool B first. Italy and USA, along with Wales and Scotland, I think on paper, was always going to be one of the closest matches, just in terms of where the two teams are at. And Italy got it done 22-10. At the start of that game, you wouldn't have thought Italy were going to win that one, because the American forwards were absolutely just dominant. The Italian scrum was like it was on wheels, but the Americans just couldn't score. Credit to the Italians' defense for just getting turnovers and holding the Americans out. It was quite a defensive shift, and then I think the difference maker is just the execution skills of the Italian backs. So they showed some really nice wide passing, cutout passes, and managed to score a few tries. Rigoni in the midfield, is a top player for the Italians. But yeah, like I said, once their forwards were able to kind of get a bit more parity, that kind of evened things up. But the Americans really needed to capitalize on the early pressure, which they didn't. They only scored 5 points in that first half, which they bossed the start of it anyway. So yeah, they'll look back on that one with a few things they would have liked to have done a bit differently for sure, the Americans. The other game in Pool B was Canada over Japan. This was always going to be, of the Sunday games, probably the most lopsided. It sure proved to be the case, 41 points to 5. Although there were some kind of dry spells for the Canadians where they just couldn't get things going, especially in that second half. They were knocking on the door of Japan for ages, but they would either knock it on or get turned over, and Japan would just kind of kick clear. So, Japan did well to get an early try in response to Canada's early try, but that was their only score of the game. Totosi, the hooker, gets like 3 tries. That Canadian maul was just brutal. So, yeah, Canada dominates the possession and territory, probably to be expected. It's nice to be wearing a Canadian jersey for a first time in a very long time. Because the men's team's not had a lot to shout about, but yeah, the women's team looked the business in this one, and the Canadians are top of Pool B, the Japanese are bottom, USA's third, and Italy sitting there second. So Italy take on Canada next. I think Canada's going to be favourites for that one, but based on what we saw from the Italians, could be a really interesting game. And then USA against Japan, you'd probably be back in USA to win that one, but yeah, we'll have to wait and see. The final game, the other one from Pool A, is probably the best game of the round, just in terms of pure drama. 18-15, it is the closest game, I think pretty comfortably, of all the games this weekend. And it comes down to an 85th minute penalty. After Scotland have done so well to even it up like a minute before time, Wales go like 23 phases at the death, and Kira Bevan, nerves of steel, to kick a penalty to win it for Wales. So yeah, man, Wales statistically probably should have, they had 7 clean breaks to 1, I think. So yeah, pretty crazy game. But yeah, Wales, the celebrations at the end of that game were just phenomenal. So yeah, man, a good win for Wales. They are second in Pool A, just behind the Black Ferns, Scotland third, and then the Aussies fourth. So Scotland take on Australia in the next game, which is very much a do or die one. And then Wales take on the Black Ferns. Black Ferns should be big time favourites for that one. But in a World Cup, you do never know. The Black Ferns surrendered a 17-point lead early in their game, so yeah, at least they showed a bit of bounce back ability. But there you go, folks. Let us know what you reckon. It was been, as I said, a pretty entertaining first round, and second round we should see hopefully a few close games as well, because like I said, these games were a bit lopsided for the most part. But the fact that you've got like an England taking on a France, you'll see England get their best test of the pool stages anyway. So yeah, we'll see how things go. You guys let us know what your thoughts are. I should say, I've been watching the games on ITV, which is, I'm in New Zealand, so that's not supposed to be a thing, but VPN. I use Express, down in the description. Watch the games live, watch them on demand. But that being said, here in New Zealand, we are showing them delayed on TV3 if you want to watch them. If you want to watch them live, then you either need to go for Spark Sport or, like I said, explore the VPN options. I think Australia is Stan. But you guys let us know what your thoughts are. And, I'll talk to you guys again soon. See you later.